with the agenda of our third day of the Digital Agriculture Week. Now we are uh, streaming this activity. For the next activity, we have invited Mariano Vasconcelos, whom I thank on behalf of ICA for his willingness to be here today with us. Mariana is co-founder and CEO of AgroSmart. AgroSmart is an AgTech, a Brazilian AgTech startup with a very interesting track record, full of lessons learned. And through those lessons learned, both of AgroSmart as well as Adriana, leader of AgroSmart, is what we wanted to share with you today, sharing with all of those that are here. So I would like to welcome you, Mariana. I would like to thank you once again on behalf of ICA for being here with us today, willing to share your experiences and your lessons learned. Let me tell you quickly before I offer you the floor that we are in the main meeting room, the USA and Canada meeting room at ICA. There are more than 70 persons face to face, many more from different countries, many AgTechs, INIAs, INTAs, universities, private corporations, etc., etc. Oh, the Minister of Science and Technology of Honduras, to my right here, Mr. Luther Castillo, and all of those that are following us virtually through ICA's YouTube channels. Mariana, welcome, and the floor is yours. Thank you, ICA. It is a pleasure to be here with you to share a bit of my story and the creation of AgroSmart. The idea was to share a bit right from the beginning about AgroSmart, how it started, and how we have been working, and then we can leave the floor open for a dialogue. I am the daughter of rural producers in the south of the province of Minas Gerais. I grew up in the rural areas. I faced my parents' challenges adapting to climate change, among others. I studied business administration, and I started to work with technology at a very early phase in the oil and gas and environmental decontamination industry, using artificial intelligence and centers to support decisions in the industry. At one point, we created a platform that would allow other developers to create applications for future development using hardware and software. And we wanted to see how we could use that tool. And that is where the idea of AgroSmart arose from. Use a irrigation management application, and with that, how we can support growers in their decisions. And about a year and a half after that first step, we created AgroSmart. As the daughter of growers, I did not want to be in the field. My parents always told me, oh, we have to do something else, something that will create more opportunities in life, that is easier. And besides, as a woman, they said that was definitely not their plan for me to stay out in the rural areas working on something like this. But by creating AgroSmart, I connected both worlds, what I liked, the technology and the science, and I connected that to the rural areas and my roots. And just like me, there are many youngsters that are in the family succession process, and they are also focusing on bringing technology to the business. We clearly wanted to see how to generate data, because I mean, what you can measure, you can use. So we wanted to bring sensors to the field to ensure to check what was happening with weather. For example, at the beginning, we came across several problems determining what works, what does not work, because agriculture is an open skies activity, and there were a series of challenges to overcome to come up with a product. We tested different options, different versions, with the help of some development research and innovation institutes to create a hardware that would help, and started to work with my parents' friends, in fact. And we had people testing these possibilities on different properties with different crops under different weather conditions. And once with that worked, we understood it was not enough, because for producers, with data, they really did not know what to do with it. No one had taught them how to process that information and turn it into something useful. So there was a severe water crisis in Brazil at the time. So we decided to use the data for irrigation purposes, because we thought perhaps that could be one of the most simple applications. So we started to turn the data into an algorithm that could tell us how much water to use in each plot within a property. So those were our first efforts. We put sensors up for irrigation purposes that would tell us how much to irrigate. So that led us to the first client, I guess the first revenue and our first check for investment. We participated in a process called Encarta Brazil that connected us to a private accelerator to validate the product. We learned about, we met the first risk organization, fee ventures, and with this, then there were other types of demand that started arriving. So we started to seek better weather forecast. For example, we wanted to look at different options. For example, selling the sensor data to corporations. So we started to develop a series of features with a very difficult product discovery process, because it was a very difficult process to complete the growers. And we discovered that as agronomy is an excellent algorithm, the coffee growers, for example, it did not have all that information. They were focused on exports, and they were not interested in learning about the real problem. So for that product, the business model needed to be different in partnership with corporations that produce agricultural inputs for this. So we got somewhat off track, because we grew quite quickly. We came across a lot of scale problems. Sensors started to fail out in the field, and our routine of going and assisting companies had not yet been structured. And we did not think that so many things could go wrong in the field at the same time. That was our first stressful moment. We were left almost cashless, and we were making significant investments. So everything was going off the wrong track. We had many products, and we did not know what to do with them. So we had to sit down and basically reorganize things on an integrated platform. We realized we were launching a series of products that were not going to help us, for example, with climate and weather. So we ended up discovering that the sensors were from a different supplier, and in Brazil, the soils had a lot of other nutrients that were not programmed, and the sensors we were using. So we had to make some changes. We found corporate, more mature investors that, aside from investors, wanted to be our clients and support us in our effort. These investors were a hardware company, leader in Latin America in computer manufacturing, and they had the expertise in how to manufacture hardware in this sense, basically for the maintenance, installation, all the entire process, because that the maintenance part was difficult. So we had the service partnership with them. They helped develop the structure in the area. We started to upscale the business with capillarity and at a very good competitive cost, thanks to them. So they helped us better define our strategy. And on the other hand, there was a bank that was helping us understand what to do with the data we had. We had to reach new places, new clients, and we had to package our information differently. So with this round of funds, we did a product revamping with new language, new software structure, and integrated and uniform now with a climate platform, not just focused on irrigation before. Now we had a broader platform with a combination of functionalities, both for producers as well as for the corporation. And with this, we were forced to improve our governance significantly because these were more mature funds and they were in the stock exchange. So we needed to consolidate our results, and we had to implement many management processes, non-corruption, governance, reporting to investors, which is so important nowadays for business continuity. I think things worked very well. We grew very well. The pandemic, in fact, helped us because the more producers joined us. Things helped us grow at least 100, 200% per year for 3 years in a row. We acquired a company in Argentina to supplement our product portfolio because one of the biggest challenges was to grow. Once the producers were with us, they wanted to stay. The product was very good. They were very satisfied. The return on investment for them was very good, but we had difficulty growing commercially. So with the acquisition of that other company, it helped us very much to go even further at a much lower cost. And we were able to expand our presence throughout Latin America. So in 2023, we consider that we have grown significantly with stability, improving the economic indicators to reach the different stakeholders. When we started, our margins were very deficient. We had no idea of what margin was. We had no idea of a lot of things. So that was a lot of hard work. It was a very difficult problem. So we started to worry more and more. Now we want to ensure the entire universe. We are improving our margins to reach a break-even point as soon as possible. And that is what we are doing today. With all these changes in product and in strategies, et cetera, today we are an operational system that is following the transition through sustainability, resilience. And we bring agronomic intelligence and financial services, environmental services. We bring them all together in one single platform. Our brands talk to the producers. We have 2 products, Buscaraglo, which is a free of charge app that gives weather information, and we exchange best practices with the commission, and we help them understanding what is happening in the region. We have Buscapro, another app where we monitor fields, and we generate a series of algorithms that will help make decisions aside from irrigation, and we give them alerts and warnings as to extreme weather conditions and anything that may affect producers day by day. These products generated an impact in 2022, a savings of more than 50 million liters of water, and avoided the emission of more than 10,000 tons of greenhouse gases and more than 34 megawatts of energy. through mitigating climate effects. That is, we have supported producers to take better decisions using better, less energy, better using the natural water resources, and this led to a reduction in expenses and to protect natural resources. And as to climate adaptation, more than 200 times our alerts of extreme conditions were used. The we have informed the growers in time for them to respond and better react. As a consequence, we have been measuring our impact on the other side through the SMART brand. With corporations, we have two different types of strategies. One looking at the impact indicators, ESG, the environmental, social, and governance indicators. And we see the supply chain that comes all the way from agro. We connect them to different agro suppliers, and we help them mainstream all these efforts in water footprint, greenhouse gas effect, and we improve their elements regarding gender inequality and youth. So we provide technical assistance. We are working with these organizations to better understand how they can reach their sustainable development goals and support their producers to adopt these goals and improve their indicators. And now we are doing all of this to understand financial risk. Once we have all these climate indicators, we generate risk reports that measure climate, crop, good practices to better understand the risk a producer may face. And they can use that for addressing banks and insurance agencies. And now we are working with the government to local governments to support public policies and address climate change and the reasons. So this is a complete platform involving all different actors in the supply chain, supporting with technology and the data we develop with the producers to make better decisions and implement best practices and sustainable efforts to lead to more resilient and more sustainable agriculture in general terms. Today,
Today we have 100,000 producers with different products located mainly in Latin America and more than 9 countries. We have different crops, grains, corn, soy, coffee, oranges, grapes, and different crops that allow us to support this. So right now we're doing a new fundraising round. It was quite challenging, taking into consideration what has happened after the pandemic. We had already extended the cash for the company, but now with the Ukraine crisis and the political crisis, it becomes harder to have access to capital. So we invested much in our operational efficiency to guarantee that we were going to have liquidity or cash for a longer time and have this capital round, and that has yielded good results. And this shows the maturity of entrepreneurship when there is a moment of innovation, when you don't know what's going to happen, and you end up using the money to explore. But there are some moments when you need to focus on the operation and the management and in becoming more efficient in everything you do before taking new steps. And that's what we are focused. We have focused on in the past year. So looking at everything that we have done, we know that there is no linear solution. Sometimes you feel you're growing, and then when you look at it, it's pretty much like a heart. It goes up and down, it goes up and down. You see many problems on a day-to-day basis. We were lacking, for example, cash like 3 times, and we were about to die those 3 times, but we were able to adapt. And what makes this is something challenging. This is also, but worth doing is the purpose. As an entrepreneur, you want to do something that you think it's cool, because artificial intelligence and GPTs are now in vogue. People want to do that, but technologies change. And in the 8 years of my company, we have changed different programming languages and different fundraisers. So everything changes, and you should not fall in love with technology, but fall in love with the problem that you're trying to solve. And what you do is go back to the core of the things that you need to do and start again. And so you need to think of what you're doing, what is your core, how can I accomplish this mission, this purpose of transforming the climate crisis through agriculture, because that's our objective. And every time you lose motivation and you get tired, it's important to see what's the impact. And we are a company of this B system. We prioritize, and we do not only give return to our stockholders, but to society. We want to have an impact in each of the different spheres that support our sustainable development goals, food security, gender equality. We have more women in the field, more women in technology. We're looking at the use of water as a resource that we want to use it in a more conscious manner. We look at agro industries, agricultural industries, and how not to leave anybody behind. We include family farmers and small producers and their products. Over 40% of our clients are located or are small rural producers. And this is very important for us, the connection between the chain and the producer for sustainable production and deal with the climate crisis. So when things become difficult, I always look back and see, why am I doing this? There's a difference between purpose and impact. You need not only to have the purpose, but you also have to have the impact. You need to measure it, you know, to know what's going on. And every time I wonder if I'm a good entrepreneur, the best entrepreneur to do this, I look back and see what's the footprint I'm leaving. Am I accomplishing something? Am I having an impact on somebody aside from my mission? So that's what renews my strength to restart. Every time we do something new, a new round of investment, we feel like we're a new company because the challenges are new. And as we're living things that we've never lived before, we all need to adapt and work together. And something else that's important is who we choose to work with us. My co founders are close friends of mine, and we are all very different. One focuses on hardware, he's an engineer, another one is a designer and is looking at the product, at the experience, how to connect different perspectives in one thing. So we all respect our realms, but we know that we are working together in a single company. And so when we all have different responsibilities, and the same happens with investors, you need to adapt and you need to choose the investors that are aligned to your purpose and to your work style. And I'm lucky enough to have partners who were colleagues of mine. And when we were not doing well, instead of just nagging, they said, okay, what are we going to do? So, what is it that we can do to help? We need to endure this together. So, I think that your the the trip is much important than the destination. So I wanted the journey is most important than the destination. So we reached far maybe, but we didn't know we were going to get there. And then I did not study in a very famous university or anything, but I was able to obtain the vision and the mission based on the experiences that I had collaborating with governments. And today I'm part of the World Economic Forum and others. And so I had the chance to go into communities and networks that supported me greatly and that helped me create my vision and my ambition and to see where I can reach. So it's healthy to have a combination between having the moonshot, to be able to aim to the moon, because even if you fail, you will still aim far and accomplish something big. So the idea is to dream big. So because we're very ambitious, and that's important to reach far, but even though we have this idea of heading that way, we are not obsessed by it. So we see every day and we enjoy the journey because one day you may be having a moonshot and the next day is not that. And so that helped me learn that there's not a place, a fixed place in for success. One day you success will depend on winning something, but another day your success will be in failing. So you need to make sure you know who you work with and who do you share things with. So it's being successful is not being a unicorn and make $1 million, but having fun as we make an impact. And so it's worth thinking big, but that's not the only thing that you can focus on. Well, Fede, those were my 20 minutes. And so let's leave some room for questions. Well, thank you very much, Marian. Your presentation was very clear, very exciting. We wanted to listen to Marian's story from her personal perspective and the AgriSmart perspective because it has very different perspectives. It was nice to see where the ambition came from to generate new technology and how can technology reconnect the youth with the field, with the rural areas, how to overcome crisis, how to look for funds, how to manage success when things are going well. So I think it has a bit of everything. Your story has a bit of everything. And this story should help people think of ideas and recommendations that can help the startups and the AgriSmart on behalf of Art Tech that can offer solutions so that they don't have to go through dying almost 3 times. It's good to have ups and downs, but if you can minimize the risk and identify actions to minimize risks, that would be awesome. Or that would be the best for all, particularly for those who are in charge of the companies and for their mental health. Exactly. So we have some time for questions and comments. She said it very quickly, but she is a benchmark, an international benchmark, as part of the World Economic Forum. And so she's a young person who is an entrepreneur, a well known entrepreneur. And she's assisting us also in the development of the digital agriculture program in Erica. Can you introduce yourselves very quickly before asking your question? Hello, Mariana. Good morning. My name is Alfonso Firia from Uruguay, from Athena. Just a quick comment. Your story is quite inspiring because of all that energy and your willingness to succeed. And I have identified with your proposal, so congratulations and thank you for your telling us your story. You're welcome. Thank you. Mauri, go ahead. Hello, Mariana. Mauricio Pintado from Zafrales, Uruguay. I just wanted to congratulate you. I feel very identified with your experience as an entrepreneur. And one of the things that you mentioned of being a B company, I wanted you to please tell us more about that need or vision to be seen as a B company. I learned about the concept of a B company when I studied in the US. Brazil, at this time, there was no legal structure for you to be a B company, but I always liked it because as an administrator, they teach you that your function is to generate and maximize resources. So to me, it was not only about that. So I always wanted to generate an impact, and that is important as founders. So it was always our intent. And that's why we wanted to be a social business, because the impact should not be just an accidental happening of what you do, but it should be something that you intend to do. So we always had that vision. But as you grow and start attracting different types of investors and stakeholders, not everybody is equally committed or in the same way. So in during times of crisis, you need to see where you make the greatest impact with not as much resources. So you need to focus on the investment, and you need to leave everything that you do in favor of humanity aside. No, no, no. You need to figure out a way to do both, generate an impact while you grow economically. And it's my DNA, it's what I believe. So I wanted to implement the SPE system because it changes your status. And all stockholders have to agree that the idea is not only to maximize revenue, but also to return something to society and the planet. So I wanted to have that legally, that we understood what type of company we were. And mm, if there were a crisis, I wouldn't like our purpose to be at risk. So, Luther Castillo, go ahead, Luther. I would like to congratulate you for that amazing work you've done. You have an amazing energy as well. It's contagious. A female energy. You're very clear on what you want to do in this transformation process. So I think that what you convey is quite convincing. And I love the way you see how how to how to implement the things that you learn, and see how you readapt and maybe look for a more real pathway when doing things. And so I'm quite excited about your figures of over 100 producers that have become involved in more than 9 countries. And what you talked about, that you should not become in love with technology, but in love with what your solution or the problem that you're trying to solve. So that you need to enjoy the journey beyond the goal or the objective. So we usually in Y have the effort, and next we have legitimacy, and we it's never a linear, a straight line to attain our objective. It has ups and downs, and that's definitely very interesting. And that the goal is not only to maximize your uh, increasing revenue, but maximizing processes. Thank you for showing us your passion, showing us it's possible and something feasible. Thank you, Luther. Alistair, we have time for one or two questions.
Congratulations on this activity that you're engaged in. Unfortunately, I missed part of the presentation, but I would like to ask, you spoke about small producers. Can you tell me the size of these small producers on average, their scale of operations, and also if there is a large uptake or use of the technology by women producers across Brazil?
Yeah.
where many times they belong to a system, can be a cooperative, where a food industry source from them and organize them. So we are able to reach them exactly because we are able to organize them. So we can reach them directly through our free app. But when we are talking about sensors and so on, we find a facilitator that can be the government, can be the cooperative, can be the food industry, where they start so they can share, where we can place sensors in strategic regions, for example, and then they can share the structure. So we are quite happy that we found a business model where we can reach the smallholders not just with the free app, but also with the full paid value proposition that we have. In regards of women, I think it's a growing movement. In the past, there was very few. Now, in Brazil and Argentina, there are several communities of mujeres rurales, like women in farming. I would say it's still a journey. A lot of them are not yet the decision makers. They are influencing, they're trying to take more responsibility, but I do see that they lead the sustainability agenda in many, many cases. So I do not have an exact number to give you of how many of them are women, especially because that's not necessarily true. So in Brazil, for example, a farmer legal entity is not necessarily a company legal entity, but it's its own CPF or QUIL, like the tax ID number. And many times the farms, they break themselves into the family members, and they have areas located to every tax ID, so they pay less taxes. So it could be that a woman is the owner on the tax ID, but not really. So I don't have like an exact number, but from my own community experience, I see that growing more and more. And worldwide, in Brazil and in Argentina mostly, I see those communities where we are there for each other to incentivize taking more leadership roles.
Gracias, Marian. Creo que tenemos tiempo para una más. Adelante, Angélica.
Hola Mariana, soy Angélica Costa de IncluirTech. Primero te felicito, te he admirado ya hace un tiempo y no solo por el
Now,
hecho
not only because of AgroSmart's purpose and how it supports our agricultural sector, but because you're a leading woman in a company like this one. So I wanted to ask you, today we are operating in Colombia and Mexico, and we facilitate access, credit access for small agricultural and livestock producers. So what are your projects in these two countries, or what are AgroSmart projects in these two countries? Because they definitely need solutions such as AgroSmart, and we know the reality of the small producer, and we need you. Yes, of course. So let me start with Mexico. Our presence in Mexico is through Masteragro, which is our free application. In Colombia, we do have other things. We have corporations that are using the analytics and Scopus tools in coffee, and we have in Booster Pro in flowers. We don't have any teams in Colombia. Today, they're located in Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil. That's our next plan before this major crisis. So I met a Colombian investor, and some doors opened to be able to grow more in Colombia. And the idea is to establish a regional team in Colombia, but we're still waiting for the waters to calm. But those are some important markets aside from Brazil and Argentina. And we are looking forward to doing that. And since we also like M&As, like mergers and acquisitions, projects like the ones we did in Argentina with Agro, and we will love to get to know companies in these countries that may have an interest in getting together and creating a more consolidated position with the platform. Well, thank you very much. We ran out of time, sadly enough. I'm very happy that your story was able to inspire us and motivate us, and we can come up with possible actions that may promote the development of digital solutions and their enjoyment. I love the fact that you need to feel identified. So it's good to know that I'm not the only one who feels that way, because if other people feel that way or have a common interest and common concerns, well, it means it's something we can work on. And I believe we can then propose some specific actions and recommendations particularly, to try to minimize and mitigate. Can I say something just to conclude? Here at Stanford, it was a meeting of Latin American entrepreneurs, not from the agricultural sector, but in general, and they talked about the importance that when you start becoming an entrepreneur, you have to have the structural blocks all set so that you can grow. And I think many of the barriers that we face in AgTech is that these blocks, the structural blocks, are not there. So we need to solve them, but it's very hard. That's why it's important to collaborate with other players from civil society and the governments to come up with those, the infrastructure, connectivity in the fields, education, being able to write and read and write, being able to use a smartphone, environmental awareness, financing. There's very little credit reaching certain areas to have the transformation of agri-food systems and forests and so on and so forth. These are the structural blocks that are not there so that you can grow as a company. So we have many AgTechs in a very early stage that have difficulties to grow because the market is not completely ready to grow. Let us grow. So that's where we need to work. And that's something that I do as Mariana. That is to connect with other stakeholders, because this is a problem that involves us all. The idea is to develop this financing, education, and infrastructure blocks that we need. And we identify because we have the same structural problems to grow. And that's where we can use ICA and the other stakeholders that are available, entrepreneurs, so that we can work together in solving these blocks. Well, thank you very much, Marian. I think that was a great closing. Thank you again for your time and willingness to give us your story. And now we're going to move on to the next activity. Bye-bye. Thank you. So now we're going to start with the next block of the morning. Alice? So we're going to have the presentations from AgTechs. We're going to have AgroData, InData, Tenet.
Good morning to everyone online. My name is Alice. We will begin with the third AgTech group. Remember that each AgTech has 10 minutes for their presentation, and then we will open up to an exchange, a discussion. We are a bit behind schedule right now, so let us hope we do not extend ourselves too much, to not lose time from our lunch break. Edivaldo Audi from AgroData Set from Brazil will be our first speaker. Please. Greetings, everyone. Can you hear me clearly? My name is Edivaldo Aldes, and I am very honored and I'm grateful for the opportunity given to me by ICA to present AgroData Set. We are an open platform that is not free of charge, but open to provide software services integrating digital technologies through satellite imagery for the digital inclusion of family agriculture. We use the most advanced digital resources that apply to georeferent rural properties. Our social objective is empower family growers with real-time information for them to make the best decisions. I know I am speaking very fast. I apologize. We want to reduce costs, eliminating fumigation in all properties. The possibility is to have more focused spraying based on the accurate information developed. And the experiments in 2021-22 basically are localized spraying. And they resulted in a 22% reduction for coffee plantations, and 36% less in oranges, 38% less in pineapple, and 41% in plantain production in farms on Bahia, Brazil. In Brazil, the biggest problem for rural growers is connectivity. Currently, less than 50% of the rural population has a quality connection. Technological innovations are focused on satellite interpretation, and there are many barriers to credit. So that is a big problem for family agriculture. Family farmers in Brazil cover 77% of all agricultural farms, reaching 3.9 million farms. 23% of all the agricultural territory in the country, 80 million hectares. 67% of the population represents 6.8 million people employed. Just imagine. Our technological proposition is to attract new paradigms for family farmers because it provides them with satellite imagery in real georeference territories to better share these resources. The inclusion model for agrodata set helps give these farmers the best prices and gives us the possibility to have digital groups in different areas because the companies work with relatively large properties. So working together, we facilitate precision agriculture. This flow chart, operational flow chart of the platform, is the AgroDigital solution. Easy to manage or to handle and allows to provide customized information on the location of or the site of problems on the property, eliminate costs, eliminate losses, both water as well as other resources. And this is a good opportunity to implement different networks and for remote monitoring for these rural files, if we can call them that way. CAR is a regional organization that provides technical assistance and financial resources in Bahia, Brazil. It helps the technologies considering the facility and connections and improve the training and the organization of data to help agricultural cooperatives in the region of Bahia. It is worth mentioning that Bahia has several programs to maximize the use of agrodata set, for example. They are using microdata and several other aspects of great interest. The Brazilian market shows the scalability in the northern region and north and northeast, where family presence is very strong. This is the steering committee, Osvaldo Alvarez, Fabio Teixeira, expert in technological transformation, Elias Alves, engineering manager, Edson Melis, the programmer that helps us with technological development. AgriData Set is a viable alternative to reduce the digital technology gap that exists between large and small rural producers in Brazil and LATAM. Thank you. I apologize for my mixture of languages. I wasn't either able to follow either one. Thank you, thank you. Now we move to the next. Okay, no, I guess I have a question first, just to better understand. What do you give the small family growers? What is it? What information and what format? This is basically a device, the geolocation of the anomaly on the plantation is reported via mobile phone. There's georeferencing, so then they can see the weather conditions in the site, exact site, and this is very helpful information. Basically, it provides information on a soil humidity, etc., and this goes directly to the a farmer's cell phone, but it's a graphic image. But there is a problem here, right? Well, there's a website that shows exactly what is reported and what the process is like. Agrodataset.com. Anyone else? Camilo? Oh, Camila, excuse me. Perhaps it would be good for you to explain the partnerships you entered into to reach such a large number of growers. The partnerships, the parcerias, as you call them in Portuguese. Yes, yes. And how did that help you achieve those results? Well, we have satellite imagery, as I said, of Brazil. There is a satellite that gathers information every 5 days. And we have a scoping plan that offers better maps to have more accurate information. Currently, we are using that one. This is the most important partnership we have, and CAF that is opening up the doors for trials, testing, calibration. For satellite imagery, basically, Atematica is basically the owner. This is a company. The view formation model is the one that they built. There are other applications also. This is focused on small growers. Is this private enterprise that provides the satellite imagery? Could you give us a bit of information on the costs? Well, there was a slide I went through very quickly showing the $10 per hectare per year for each farmer, producer. to get that information every day. What type of imagery are you talking about? Well, we are working to overcome a minor issue here. The satellite imagery, yes. No microphone, please. The Technological Research Institute of Brazil, it is a Brazilian satellite that offers that information every day. And they have a 5-day interval, and we hope to have a daily frequency. That is the plan. Okay, let us leave it at that. Thank you very much for your presentation. And now let us move to the next presentation. Sergio Daniel Revolo from Indata, Uruguay. Go ahead, please. Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank Ika for allowing me the honor to be here representing a Uruguayan enterprise. Although 15 years ago, I have been living in, for the last 15 years, I have been living in Santiago de Chile. 2 years ago, I was able to go back to my country to work a different manner as in Chile. In Chile, we have a company focused on a different direction, but we wanted to come to Uruguay a couple of years ago, focused on 2 areas, SME digitalization, and the other one to take technology to agro. Indata. Let me tell you a bit about its origin. We are supported by ANDI, the National Development Agency in Uruguay. We got together with Centro Pymes, and Centro Pymes said, okay, you have all the profile for seed capital. We presented ourselves. We were the winners, and that was the first validation we had. As entrepreneurs, it's always good to have our idea be validated instead of taking hasty decisions or validating business ideas. And that was the first step. We came to Centro Pymes and said, oh, okay, we seem to be going on the right track. And we got the seeds funds from ANDE. We are also part of the Association of Chilean Entrepreneurs. And our company is located in Uruguay in 33 in a department east of Uruguay, about 100 kilometers from the border from Brazil and about 300 kilometers from Montevideo. And this was the first challenge, to decentralize and get out of the capital city of Montevideo, where the largest amount of innovation and development companies and technology are located. So we are positioned as a company that provides technological solutions for SMEs and agro. We digitalize SMEs, and we got involved in the world of IoT applied to agro. Why do we have Campomatic here? As Hernan was saying, well, a producer must be at the center of it all. We really could not come to a producer and say, okay, we will use IoT applied to agro. They would look at us with the funniest face, so we had to start looking for a more commercial name, something better than Campomatic, so that we could explain what the IoT supplied to agro really meant. Our structure, scope, as I said, we are present in Chile and Uruguay, customers in most departments of Uruguay. So we support clients in Chile, Uruguay, and Mexico. And now let me tell you a bit about what IoT applied to agro is. Campomatic, we want to be the competition of the most famous instrument in the history of Uruguay, which is our eye meter. So we came in at the eye meter. We are coming up with new technology. We monitor moisture, soil humidity, soil temperature, environment. As I said, we have irrigation control and automation through the Internet of Things. What we do is through our devices, we report whether pumps are operating or not. We monitor water layers, the water tanks, and we can turn on or turn off a pump or send alerts. And the other part we love is to advise and support the producers. Marta was mentioning yesterday that producers that really work hard start at 4 a.m. and we are continuously in contact with producers. We have reached 33, an area that amongst all is quite lagging regarding technology, although in the area of rice, larger companies have a lot of technology of this nature. Well, these are very costly, and that is where we as Indata have found a banner to fight with, to make technology available to small and medium growers. We like to get together with them, listen to their issues, and from the experience of SMEs, taking them to this new world. We listened, as I said, we listen to their problems, and then we support it and help them implement the IoT applied to agro. Our technology is based on LoRaWAN. We raise our antennas there. We add a chip, a cell chip with an optimal range of 10, 15 kilometers, and our sensors are connected to the gateway, and this is made available on our platform. LoRaWAN is a technology that in 33 has not been exploited, so thanks to the topography in the area, it is quite easy to implement it because we do not have many hills or problems like that as could happen in Colombia or Chile, where the mountains are very high. These are final nodes connected to a gateway. The gateway is connected to the internet, and that goes to our platform, which is currently available on Amazon. The solution was so broad that we had to focus or be a bit more concrete instead of opening up the fan too much, because otherwise it would have been too much. So we said, okay, if we came to a solution that for agro, this is a livestock, particularly rotating pasture lands where there are water height sensors on the wells and drinking areas, and the sensor can be programmed to measure every 10, 20 minutes, every hour, what have you. And we give information to producers so they do not have to climb on top of a horse to run around the property. We have this platform. This is a web-based system. Give information on the different drinking fountains located throughout the water tables. We can see all the reservoirs, the soil moisture. All these sensors measure and send to the gateway, and the gateway is left in the platform of Campomatic. The hardware we use is basic. It is a gateway. We have this image here to the left, and the controller turns on and off the system. And basically, that's all it does. Turn anything on or off. The third sensor is the one we use to measure the water table height, and the fourth is conductivity, moisture, and soil temperature meter. This hardware is Chinese, so we are not inventing anything new. China is integrator of technology. Well, we do something similar. We existing technology. Our sensors are are referenced, so we can see the location of each one. If someone does not know exactly where it is, so basically by Waze or Google Map, basically they can reach the sensor. This is a dashboard. I will tell you a bit of the story in collaboration with INEA, where they have plots, trial plots, and we saw the possibility. I was mentioning earlier in one of the working groups that we tried to reach the producers first, and that was the big mistake because the producers did not believe us. They thought it was just something unbelievable. They thought it was way too far-fetched. So we started to seek partnerships, and they said, "Who validates this?" And one person said, "What does INEA say about this?" And we said, "Ooh." We realized that we were putting the cart ahead of the horse. We started backwards. So we got together with INEA and started a pilot program with our solutions. So what you can see here is the dashboard they have with humidity, the humidity and the different plots where they have soy. Can you hear me clearly? Yes? 1.5 more minutes. Okay, let me quick go. Environmental sensors also have environmental temperature and light. This is the dashboard of water height. There's a folder that is filled by gravity. These are different trials we have run. We have a bot with Telegram where we have alerts and warnings. This we configure commands where producers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 start asking and they get information in real time. Some examples and applications. This is a small producer in 33 with food products here with the humidity sensor. The idea is to automate irrigation in the area. And this is the case with INEA. This is the folder they use, the folder they use. The second image is a soil sensor. The third image is the plot with a rice variety. There is a water layer sensor, and the fourth is the system already installed. Quickly. The idea is to continuously improve with our existing services. We want to expand our digital solutions and IoT services. We want to incorporate new human resources. This is the pillar of our company. It's human resources because we want to expand to new markets and regions. We want to continue growing in Uruguay and explore neighboring markets, collaborate with other key actors in the technology and agricultural industry. We want to be part of that, participate in specialized events and fairs, and we want to continue in the technological development of Uruguay and the region. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now we will open up the floor to questions. Yes, please. Carlos Saito, Colombia. First of all, thank you for your presentation. A technical question. How many sensors do you need in the field? Per area. Well, that is very important. Yes. We are on the IT side. So basically what we do is use agronomist engineers for that part, or agronomists for that part. Federico Campo is a young engineer, professor, in fact, of automated irrigation at the University of AgTech in Uruguay. Based on topography in the area and based on the crops, he makes that decision. We have a concrete case. In a soy plantation, we set up a sensor that for every 30 hectares. Thank you. Go ahead. Hello, Sergio. Brian Cargo. What is your main challenge with growers and farmers at this time? Basically, we feel we are the barriers of the gospel for these people. We are looking for opportunities to inform them. And I always highlight this. We had a big possibility with the INEA 33 to be part of an information activity where we're able to share the benefits. And that is what it is, to continue spreading the gospel and entering into strategic partnerships with INEA and others. We have gone to universities, technical schools to tell about all of this, to inform about it, and to continue growing. So I believe our effort is to continue spreading the word to reach a good story, a good ending. Camila, well, I would imagine that this changes depending on the crop and the region, but it would be good to know a bit, not just for the particular case of the hardware used by Indata, but perhaps in general. You could share information on the maintenance frequency for this hardware, how long they last, depending on the different variables. Okay, very well. Very good question. Thank you. Yes. The gateways receive little maintenance. These are routers, basically, and they are prepared to be out in the weather. Sensors are also weatherproof, and their sensitivity is, well, they our low consumption maintenance is about every 5 years. The battery has prepared for this. It is a bit costly, but we believe it is worth it. $50 every 5 years should not be such a significant cost. So that is the maintenance given. And what we do is advise them and train the producers so that if at a given point in time they can ended the harvest and need to turn the sensor off, we train them until so that they can turn it off and then activate it for the next period. We work this in the SaaS format, pay-per-use, and we give support in the sense that we continuously train them. We continuously monitor these sensors. If there is a sensor that is not working well and they haven't noticed, we say, okay, it isn't working, or there's one of the 8 gateways was disconnected because of a thunderstorm, what have you, we let them know. So that is a very interesting system. Maintenance is very easy, every 5 years, approximately. Okay, you mentioned part of the answer. How much does this cost? Is this annual, monthly? Okay. The hardware, the owner is the farm owner is the owner of the equipment. We help them with the funding, and Indata Chile funds Indata Uruguay. So we have those methods to fund the hardware for the producers. And so we are in partnership with Business Changes and Centro Pymes. There are funding instruments for this type of thing. So we help them connect. A gateway will cost a bit less than $1,000. The sensors a bit less than $100. The water layer about $170. And as of that, we charge per device and with several levels. $80 up to 10 sensors, then every 20 sensors is $140, and so on and so forth. Thank you very much. Now, we will offer the floor to Jose Miguel Aljera from AgTech, Venezuela.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing us to share this very important space for the agriculture of the American continent, of the Americas. I'm just waiting for the slides. I represent AgTech, which is a company that promotes smart agriculture in Venezuela. He was born in 2020, or established in 2020, and thank you. Next slide. Our main objective has always been to be the first AgTech in Venezuela. In a context that we all are aware of climate change, hunger, and poverty, Venezuela is not new to it. Aside from all the social and political problems that we have as a country, it is very hard and is a huge challenge to adopt technology when there is no financing and where the GDP had a 70% reduction. But in the last few years, we have had a mild increase in our economy. And so some people might have had the chance to adopt some technologies, particularly the large companies, but small and medium sized producers should also have access to these technology services. And that's why we provide these services. We have the monitoring of crops with drones for different indexes, the counting plants, and DVI, plants stress, effective surface, incidence of weed, and we give an added value that is that we do a prior monitoring to be able to spray the areas that are needed and to optimize the tool as well. If you can go back to the previous slide, we also have the marketing of technology equipment like weather stations, chlorophyll measure, multi-parameter for an leaf analysis kit, and multi-parameter for soils. And we also have the teaching of courses with drones, and that is when there's an association that already has a drone, they can get the images and then they send them to us for us to process them. Then we also have the service of satellite imaging, like the ones we already saw, like in the Argentinian case. And in Venezuela, can you go back to the previous slide, please? Talking about weather stations in Venezuela is something important because INAMEC, in charge of providing this information, does not have that information because there are 35 weather stations have been vandalized. So this is a service that we provide to producers so that, go to the next slide, please, so that they can have their own records and have the surveillance of water, soil, and weather, and to know when El Nino is in due to droughts. Next, the apps have different resolutions, like classic, HD, and full HD. In our case, we use them to generate information and use differentiated plots so that we can save some money in terms of fertilizers, agrochemicals, and so on and so forth. We have seen that in Venezuela, technological delays bigger. And that's why we divide the plots using these images, and then we differentiate the areas to be able to save in terms of agrochemicals and fertilizers. In Venezuela, we do not have variable rate fertilizing producers or insecticide producers. So it represents 15% of production cost and 10% of yield. This is yield data. This is predictive agriculture. And we're offering this in Venezuela as well. This is a surveying with different levels. And we develop level curves. And these were 700 hectares that were surveyed in 4 days. This was a monitoring, an essay monitoring together with ANAC. They measured their variables and the height of the plant, for example, was one of the measurements. This was another essay by 5 companies in Venezuela of bio inputs tested in sprouts, bean sprouts. And this is shown. This shows the best option in the most objective manner. This is what was giving us best results. This is another monitoring. And the previous picture was for snow peas. And this is a monitoring for corn. And this way we can differentiate the plots. This is the strength index, and then we have the plant height. This is monitoring for corn to count plants. They saw 80,000 plants per hectare, and 62,000 of them were found at this time. 22% were underneath the standard, and 5 hectares were stressed. This is another monitoring that we carried out together with ANCA, one of the main of corn producer organizations, and they were able to show what was the damage due to La Niña. And this next, this is monitoring of oil palm, where we count the plants. Red ones are the ones that are pretty much dead, and the green ones are not stressed, and the yellow ones are partially stressed. This is a monitoring that we did with sugarcane. And the next one is in the same place, but with the soil multi-parameter. We read the NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And with that, looked at what areas were being affected and treat them. And look at the pH and uses a share value. That is that we had this multi-parameter, and we provide a service that is cheaper. In this case, this was the Family Farming Venezuelan Association, and we go where they are. We give them training and other talks, and this has a cost of $10 for soil analysis compared to an $80 soil analysis, which is a normal cost in Venezuela for soil analysis. And when we do this survey of how many of them are doing their soil analysis, out of 10, one says that they're doing soil analysis. So this is services we provide that allows them to adopt technologies, and they are saving in the use of fertilizers and other things. And so in Venezuela, use a triple 15 for everything. It's like a secret recipe. And in a country with so many problems, we spend more and we waste much. So thank you all. Thank you, Rosa Angelica. Let's open the floor for questions. Oriana, go ahead. Rosa, thank you very much for your presentation. It was very cool that Venezuela has AgTech companies and that we can all support each other as much as possible. And my question is, aside from the things that you mentioned in the morning, what is it that you need as a Venezuelan company to be able to grow more easily and to have a greater scope and develop and grow more as a company, taking into consideration the difficulties that you have in Venezuela and this lack of support in terms of research? Well, more financing and support for AgTechs. We work under a collaborative economy in Venezuela, but we still need this institution that can give us some support. We have Saul, who can also elaborate on things if he wants. He's joining us online. Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Well, yes, in fact, it is a challenge. Listening to all the part of communicating the gospel is amazing in this context, but synergies are very important with this collaborative economy that Rosangelica mentioned that has allowed us to survive in this context without any financing. Credit in Venezuela is non-existent for all sectors. It doesn't even reach $1 billion for all banking and for all sectors. And there are very few credits that may go over $150 million or $150,000, sorry. So we need credit to support the development of the economy and continue growing. But we have been growing, and I believe that this spaces and the alliances that can be developed together with ICA and other countries and other AgTechs are something very important and something that can strengthen us. And crises always generate opportunities. And so we are betting on the fact that Venezuela will recover and we will be there for that during that recovery process. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Saul. And now we're going to listen to the next one, Alfonso Freire from Tenet Hub, Uruguay. May I share my presentation? Se la compuesta como pegada. Quieren que la compartan mientras. Bueno. So I hope to be as brief as possible. I know we are running late with regards to the agenda. So Tenet is a Uruguayan business that you'll see has a similar line as Mariana's AgroSmart and UCrop. We are a very, very young starting company. We've been in the market for a couple of years. And we have been validated by ANI in Uruguay. It's a research center, and we had the financing to approve the idea and everything. So some global context, even though some things may be repeated in the terms of consumers, we know that worldwide people are looking for healthy, safe food, and we need to have a traceability, and we also have ethic consumption that need to be environmentally friendly in general. And in terms of the supply chain, the current trend is that many have traceability and many also are missing a link which would be the first link, what happens in the field. And to us, that's the most important one. And we also need to pay attention to climate change and how this is affecting companies. As Mariana mentioned today, we need to tackle emissions because developed countries have to measure and compensate with their carbon footprint, their emissions. So how can they lower their emissions? They do scope 1 and scope 2, which are their direct emissions. But in the food supply chain, most emissions come from scope 3. That is the emissions from suppliers. And this for agro-exporting countries, like the ones in Latin America, is very important to understand because we are the ones who supply those markets. And definitely we need to start showing that we have some sustainable production. And in terms of producers, what happens in Uruguay is that regardless of whether the agricultural producer complies with best practices, they get some price for the product, which is a commodity, and it's very hard for them to differentiate themselves. Even though there are a number of certifications, producers usually have to undergo a very cumbersome bureaucratic process, and they don't think it's something profitable for real. So we need to help them differentiate themselves so that they can see the benefit of doing all this. Next. So the problem very quickly is the lack of added value for local production. And I believe that's something that happens also in other countries in Latin America. And any other problems that we may have in agricultural production. And so the idea is to have traceability and have environmental metrics, and this is done through technology so that grain producers and traders can have a differentiation that may allow them to access large markets. And for this, and demanding markets. And so for this, we have blockchain digitalization, using different APIs or metric information, looking at the intrinsic value of the product. And that has to do with the environmental impact. So we need to start looking at those who trade. So they provide a service to our client, and in their model or in their production program with producers, we provide a service of monitoring and tracking all the activities in the field, from sowing to harvest, and generating remotely the necessary machinery. We obtain the information. We know the what is being applied, what activity is being done, and that is done through a mobile application that's been developed so that a producer following just 3 steps can register what they're doing. So let's say for what field, how many hectares, what's the product that's being fertilized, what's the dose. And so the information of these 2 lines will be seen in real time and will be sent to the cloud. And the idea is for this data and this information from the field, as they are encrypted, to be something trustworthy, transparent, and that cannot be modified in the future. And alongside with this, we do the environmental metrics so that at the end of the process, after the harvest, we can see the metrics that are recognized, such as carbon footprint for that production. And something else that we believe to be important is that we get the other leg, represented by the logo of the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fishery of Uruguay, that we are aligned to national sectorial guidelines and policies. Uruguay has a long-standing history of legal foundation, like a livestock law that's been there in force for 30 years, and others have been in force for 15 years. And So the producer has to declare to the ministry what will be the crop rotation in the forthcoming years, and that's for land use. So this is not something that is as separate from national policy, but on the contrary, we have met with the ministry, and the ministry supports our initiative. And why Uruguay? Uruguay, we believe, is ready to take this step. They already have a technological package that is very good at the production level. They have crop rotation, direct crop sowing, and they have other coverage crops that does not. They have terraces. So we have a package of very good agricultural practices, but these practices are not being conveyed to the markets where we take our products. So this is what we do. These are some of the environmental metrics that we have. This is for colza production and the rapeseed production. And so we can give you a specific metric information to our customers. And the most important one here would be carbon footprint per ton of product per hectare. And what we see or want to do now is to grow in the Uruguayan market, of course. We want to reach 1 million, the 1 million hectares available in Uruguay, and then expand. So the conclusions are that in worldwide, footprints are being measured. So Uruguay has a huge magnifying glass on top of it. So we need to confirm to the world that we have a production that is of high impact, and we need to show them what is our impact in production. And based on that first level, reduce it more. And we start by this transparent and clear communication of the first link of the chain where there's lack of traceability. And so the final conclusion is that yes, we can add value to the commodities. We can give producers tools so that without meddling in their agricultural decisions, they can provide an added value. So that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alfonso. Thank you for being brief and taking only the 10 minutes allocated to you. And we have 5 minutes for questions. 2. How is your team made up? And what was the response of the producers in Uruguay? So I forgot to mention 2 things about the value proposition. So there's 2 partners, and now one more is joining us in the technological side. And with regards to your question, when we started with this idea and knocking the doors of producers, we realized that what we want is to take the information from the field or producers to upload their records. We realized that not many records were available and that they were mostly manual. And then, because they were manual, that information is then sent to an office, entered into an Excel, then it's sent to somebody who needs to make the decisions. So it's a very poor registration process that is manual and slow. So in this case, it is automatic, digital, in real time, and where there's a database, and that the producer, depending on the producer, we give them access to information of whatever metric they need to produce. And this is pretty much something they have available the next day. For those who make decisions in terms of production, or in the companies that handle 4 or 5 fields at the same time, so maybe they are spraying 3 different areas. Imagine How can that decision maker decide based upon the information? Well, they can do this on a daily basis now. So that's a great added value, and producers are seeing that, and that's something that we generate. So the proposal has been adapted very well. It's been well accepted in terms of the traders. It includes the entire supply chain, so it's not as simple. So we are trying to get to an agreement with two companies, or reach an agreement with two companies. Hector, how many producers are you servicing today? And tell me what's the scenario for the other players? Those that intervene, players, producers only? So today we have few clients, maybe 35, 40 producers that we're working with. It's not like the universe of producers. There are many who know about us and others who don't know about us. So we're trying to allow people to get to know us. We are doing some silent work in terms of developing relationships that may allow other producers to get to know us. This is ant work, hard work, but that's where we are right now. Thank you very much for the information. How customizable is this for other crops in, let's say we wanted to use this in Costa Rica for coffee or pineapple? Very much. We would have to sit down and look at the metrics that you need to measure, but I believe that this is something that you can definitely adapt. I don't think there will be major complications to do so. Well, thank you very much, Alfonso. Thank you all for introducing your solutions and for those who participated in this discussion. And then, so we'll be back at 2 p.m. Thank you for your questions. And we have less time for lunch today. Because we're running a little bit late with regards to the agenda, we'll just have a 1 hour break for lunch. Bon appetit.